So I was doing a couple spec homes at like 21, 22 years old.
Okay.
Had no business to be doing spec homes, at the time. And then 2008 hit and I lost everything, everybody, all construction just came to a complete halt. And as somebody who's making $17 an hour at a contracting company, obviously couldn't pay, a mortgage on those loans and defaulted on them.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Nailed It. I'm your host, Brandon Jensen. And today's guest is Curtis Sorenson, the owner of Studio Moxie Architecture. Curtis's story is wild. At 12, he was delivering newspapers for $44 a month. By 21, he was bankrupt, losing multiple homes and wondering how to rebuild. But instead of giving up, he used those setbacks as fuel to build something incredible. Today, Studio Moxie is thriving, and Curtis is here to share how he turned failure into the foundation for success. Let's dive in. This is Nailed It. So Curtis.
Yeah.
Studio Moxie, or is it Moxie Studio?
Studio Moxie.
Studio Moxie,
Yep.
Okay. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
And so tell us a little bit your childhood. You grew up here in Salt Lake Valley.
Yep.
You had a paper route when you were young. How did you kind of go from like, hey, I'm a paper route kid to now I'm this, kick-ass architect, drawing, sweet things. We've got a plan of yours that we're going to be building. Like,
True.
Obviously extremely talented. But yeah, kind of walk us through that path of how you got to a little bit where you are today.
Well, to be clear, the architecture side is more of a side hustle. I still have the paper out. That's my main.
Oh,
that's
okay,
my passion
yeah,
project.
okay.
Yeah, it's my passion project.
Hey, you know what? What are you delivering? The green sheet? Did they sell the green
exactly.
sheet?
Yeah.
Hey, Murray has one. It shows up in the mail though.
Yeah. Well, yes. They're trying to edge us paper boys out.
Yeah. Okay.
And really take over the mail system, but
you're holding on to it.
On,
you're like, yeah. Keep that paper.
Yeah, well, it's a passion project, so.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so there's how to paper out. Yeah, that was my first job growing up. Made $22 every 2 weeks.
Big time money.
Yeah, big time money. I was balling. I bought all the candy bars that I needed at the time. That was our number one love as kids. Is like, how are we going to get more candy?
Yep.
Yep. So grew up here in Sandy, Utah. Never had thought about architecture as a career, to be honest, growing up.
Yeah.
I did horribly in school, very dyslexic, ADHD, the whole thing. So school was very challenging for me.
And so was it challenging to the point where you like didn't enjoy it? Or is it challenging? You really tried and tried the best you could, but you just could. It was like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, both of those. I think I tried until I finally gave up, and then I was just like, I'm just going to do the bare minimum.
Screw it, I'm done.
I was like a resource kid. I was in resource.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had dyslexia, but I was not diagnosed until like my 30s.
Okay.
So that was actually a really good revelation to find out, like, hey, I'm not just an idiot. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, there's actually a learning disability that I have.
Yeah.
Finding out that I was dyslexic actually was kind of a confidence building thing. And now I feel like it's kind of a superpower.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I feel like I'm so good at what I do is because I'm able to look at things differently. And with dyslexics, you can't just read words. You have to like figure out other ways to visualize the word or
to assemble it,
in your
head. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, there's go ahead.
No.
There's brilliant people that are like dyslexic.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Don't quote me on this. I think maybe Elon Musk has a little bit of like dyslexia or somebody, in that kind of billionaire status. And so, yeah, I mean, it's to your point, I think, a superpower, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, continue.
And then I had just kind of odd jobs growing up. I had like landscaping. I was a big landscaper from all the way through high school, like fixing sprinkler systems on all the church buildings here in the valley.
Oh, nice. And you worked for a company? You did that on your own? Or? Okay.
Yeah, I worked for a company. Mowing lawns, just doing, out in the sun all day.
Yeah.
But it taught me a really good work ethic, I think, just because you have to be out there, 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. and you're in the sun all day long.
And there's days that are just miserable.
Yeah. As a kid, it's like, what am I doing here? But no, it was good work ethic. I'm glad I did it. And then served an LDS mission after high school. And then after high school, I went to work for my friends. It was kind of a family-owned business, a contractor company.
Okay.
And while I was there, this was back in like 2006 when they were handing out construction loans to literally anyone.
To anybody. You had a pulse. You
Yeah.
want a loan?
Yeah.
You want 10?
Oh,
yeah,
there you
here
go.
Here's,
How many?
You want one? No. Please take 10.
Please take two. It's two or none.
Yeah.
So I was doing a couple spec homes at like 21, 22 years old.
Okay.
Had no business to be doing spec homes, at the time. And then 2008 hit and I lost everything. Everybody, all construction just came to a complete halt. And as somebody who was making $17 an hour at a contracting company, obviously couldn't pay, a mortgage on those loans and defaulted on them. And it was a learning experience for sure. But looking back, kind of reevaluating like my job at the construction company, I wasn't super happy there. And the guy that did my plans for me for the spec homes, that was kind of my favorite part of the whole process, was just like sitting with him at the desk and like, oh, cool. Could we add this on this house? Could we add some big windows here? Could we, I thought it was so fun.
Was that Wendell?
No, this was, his name is John Young down in Utah County.
Okay, nice.
Great mentor. So I approached him. Go ahead.
So let's just back up for a second.
Yeah, please.
You have these two spec homes.
Yeah.
So how old are you at this time?
21, 22.
Okay. So you're like, hey,
I have like $1.5 million in spec loans.
Yeah. I can barely, I can barely legally drink. Right?
Yeah.
And now I've got these two spec loans, and where did that idea come from? Right. Cause you signed on the dotted line. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, yep. You got a pulse. Here's your two loans.
Exactly.
Explain to me how that kind of, evolved. Cause it wasn't like you just woke up one day. You're like, I know, I'm going to go get a loan for a home and build a spec home. So
the contractor that I was working for at the time was doing that for a lot of people. They were building spec homes, and I was working there. I was seeing these people, normal dudes coming in, doing a spec home, making, $100,000 or $50,000 or $200,000, whatever it was.
Yeah,
and I was
like, this is stupid.
At 21, I thought that was, all the money in the world.
Yeah.
If I just had that, I'd be set for life,
Yeah, yep.
So yeah.
Maybe a year or two, but life.
Yeah.
When you're 21,
when you're
22,
21, that's all you're seeing is like
a year or two is life.
It is. Yeah, for sure. And so I approached them and I was like, hey, can I do one of these too? And they're like, absolutely. You get a spec loan, you get a spec loan, you get a spec loan. So it's just, of course you could do one.
Yeah.
So,
and you're 21, you probably got a credit card at, 18 or so you've got good credit. It's not
okay
that,
credit,
they're just kind of like, good credit, good to go.
Good to go. And not even okay credit,
Yeah.
was still qualified you for a spec loan back then.
Yeah. See, I never dipped my toe into that. So I feel pretty fortunate, but yeah, we had another guest who, similar thing. He was in California, lost them all. And, okay, so that's how you got to the spec loan. So now you've got John Young?
John Young, yeah.
Okay.
John Young Design.
And is he still around today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me. I think he's working for another firm now. But
okay.
Yeah.
But at this time, he was kind of doing his own thing.
There's maybe 4 or 5 of us in the office. It was such a fun work environment. We were all just kids,
And so you approached him for a job. So, hey, let me come work for you?
And not even that. I approached him. I said, John, can I just come sit behind you for like a month and watch how you work? Because I have no idea, never taken a drafting class, never thought about architecture or design or anything, never even been in construction until I, started doing books for this contracting company. So I've never even in my mind thought about construction as a career opportunity. He was gracious and was like, absolutely come sit behind me and just watch how I work. And I thought it was so cool. He's just on the computer. He was so fast, just click, 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 click. And I thought it was magic. He was making all these lines move up and down. And it was just AutoCAD, like line work in AutoCAD, nothing 3D at the time. And after, I don't remember if it was a full month, but he offered me a job, at the end of that. He's like, hey, yeah, if you want to do this, I could help teach you how to do this. And I thought that after watching him for like a month that I'd get on the computer and be like, oh, wonderful. I know how to. But I remember he was like, draw the site plan. And it was just a square rectangle property. It was nothing crazy. It was
280 feet here, 190
exactly.
Here,
and I was like, I asked the guy next to me, I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, oh, you need to draw a line. And I was like, oh, like how do we do that? It's like press L, enter. And then, so it was very like rudimentary in the beginning. It was very slow.
Yeah.
Started with no experience at all. I was always artistic growing up, so I could draw, a little bit.
Yeah.
And paint and stuff. So I was always kind of drawn to the arts. And maybe that's what kind of drew me to this, was like, it's a creative outlet that you could like be creative at work. That sounds crazy. That's wonderful, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started with him. At the beginning, I was just doing like site plans, like the little rectangles. I did I'm sure I did one a week in the beginning, but then, you know, you get better and better, and until I was doing 10 a day or something. And then it was like, okay, you're caught up on that. Let me show you how to like do a section in AutoCAD.
Yeah.
He would design a house. Here's the elevation, floor plan, and like, here's how you do a section for this house. And we need, you know, 3 sections or whatever. So that I'd start with just sections until I got that right. And then I would move to like an elevation. I have a floor plan. I want this elevation to look right. I've done a front. Now we need the side and back. And in AutoCAD, you're just pulling lines straight down. It doesn't create like a 3D. Now the software just, it all does the same thing. It all builds the house as you're drawing it out.
Builds the box, yeah.
This is just line work. So you're just pulling lines down, you know, making sure it's all accurate. And just started like learning the computer side of it. And then somewhere along the way, just kind of fell in love with it. Like, this is crazy. I'm designing this house, and then it gets built, and you get to like see this house.
And it comes
walk
to life.
Through it. A family moves in, and you walk through it, and there's like couches, and you're like, what? I can't believe I remember drawing that door. I remember drawing this window. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And the family gets to live here and like experience their life, you know, raise their kids in this building that you drew, what came out of your imagination. I don't know.
I always tell people, I go, look, there's a big difference between a home and a house, right?
Yeah.
A home is where somebody lives, right? Memories are created. You know, they experience life with birth, death, with the passing of a family member. Like it's all housed within those 4 walls, right? And
there's some magic in there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So backing up just a little bit, you lost the loans and then you started working for John Young? Okay.
Yeah.
So he was still busy enough through this kind of like this downturn that he was like, hey, I can give you a job. There's still enough work that I'm doing that I could hire you.
Which says a lot to his prowess as a designer. Like, so many designers at 2008, 2009, 2010 were going out of business. And here he was like, he had built enough rapport with enough builders and contractors who trusted him. Contractors still needed homes, you know, even if they weren't building 10 a year, they still needed to do 1 a year, you know, put some food on the plate for their families. So they're still hiring him, you know, even on a slowed down basis, but he was still busy enough to like hire, a new guy and train him. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of people out of work that knew what they were doing. He didn't have to hire me. Like he took a big swing and
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, he probably also had, you know, saw like, there's this guy just like,
sitting behind me,
like creepily sitting behind me, like just give him a job so he can
typing, like, is he
so
still
he can
there?
sit in front of a computer. Like, this feels weird.
I'm just breathing over his neck, my breath on his neck, and he's like, what's
whoa.
happening?
He's like, yeah, you just a little bit, stand a little bit further back. Okay, so you work for him. How long do you work for?
How long did I work for him? It did start getting slower, so I was only with him for maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Until 2010, then it really started slowing down some more, and it was like, okay, this is not picking up. And then one of the builders that he was drawing plans for was still building homes and still building spec houses, and had maybe a subdivision in Bountiful with maybe 10 houses that he was trying to wrap up. And so I asked him, I really liked the way he was very upfront, and if things went awry in the design process, he never like lost his cool or anything. It was always like, okay, what's the solution? I like solution based. I hate finger pointing. And so I saw his like solution based approach to problems. And so when things slowed down with John, I called this guy and I was like, hey, do you need like an extra hand? I can come, I don't know, build decks or whatever you need on these houses. And it was so cool because he had like a track hoe, he had a backhoe, a skidster, and a mini X. So we had like the 4 pieces of construction. And he's like, I need some basements dug, get in this track hoe. And so now I'm like driving this giant track hoe and building retaining walls. It was like the funnest summer because I was just playing in the dirt, you know, like a little kid in a sandbox, learning how to drive a skidster and like a backhoe and
I don't think,
mini X.
If you've never driven one of those before, and even if you're a good gamer, right? Because it's kind of like the joystick thing, right? I backfilled my personal home, and I sheared off more than my fair share of bolts. I chunked the foundation a couple of times. Because next thing you know,
the back end is really big, swinging it around.
Okay, so you did that for a summer.
Yeah.
And you stayed on with him. How long were you working?
I was with him for probably a little less than a year. So it was
Okay.
just like get back into construction. As a kid, my dad was an electrician, so I was always out on job sites with him,
Okay.
more commercial stuff. But it just felt good to feels good to get dirty and, work with your hands and
Yeah, sweat a little, right?
yeah, sweep a basement out or whatever, it's just manual labor, I think, is therapeutic sometimes, especially
Absolutely.
just playing in the dirt, like with a giant machine,
Yeah, little kids playing in the dirt. Come on, man.
Yeah, it was fun. Learned how to drive a dump truck. It was the double
Was
clutch.
it manual? Yeah. Okay. That's what. Yep.
It was fun. And it was a good experience just digging basements and backfilling and smoothing out, prepping for concrete, digging sewer lines, like all that stuff, just seeing kind of the nuts and bolts of the inside of the house and what has to go on the infrastructure, because I had been drawing houses for a couple of years then, and now go back and
See it come
see
together.
everything, all the Legos, getting put together and pieced together. And I don't know, it was a good experience.
And I think for contractors, and I think it's valuable for owners to have a contractor who has actually spent time building
For sure.
on a construction site, because they understand, like, okay, I've got this roof line that comes together, and well, wait a second, this header doesn't fit in here.
Yeah.
I think it helps mitigate, or it makes the architect more, in tune with, okay, these are potential pitfalls. These are areas that we can address here in the office before they become a problem in
For
the
sure.
field.
Like your point, you have a big beam, then you have to run a mechanical equipment. You can't just drop it under the beam and back up.
Yep.
So if somebody's going to have this giant thing in their wall because
Yeah.
we have to get a heat register over there, but the furnace is here. Like, how do you think through that? Where is it actually going to go? Because the guys in the field aren't going to spend the time to really, they're there to just run the line to there. They're like, what's the easiest way? That's the way I'm doing it. And you're like, no, let's think about this a little bit.
What's the best way?
What's the best way?
Yep.
Yeah,
What's the best way? Not the easiest way. But
exactly.
to your point, a lot of the guys, right? It's like they want to get in, they want to get out. That they, their boss is on them to get to the next job, and so having an architect that has a little bit of foresight to try and address some of that stuff, I think, is invaluable. And if they've never built, they're not generally doing that.
Right.
Or if they're doing it, they're not as skilled as those people who have some of that, in the field experience.
Yeah.
So you pick up this in the field experience, everything from digging the holes to the utilities. I'm sure you helped out with the vertical once you came out of the ground. Where did you go from there after, your stint with this builder?
So the builder eventually slowed down to where he was going out of business too.
Okay.
And then I found a drafter, Wendell,
Okay.
design technographic services here in Murray, actually right down the road.
Is he still
I don't know. I don't know.
I might have to
Hit him up.
give him a call and just check in on him.
Put him on the podcast, man. Get his take.
He's still drawn by hand. I mean, at least the last I
Yeah.
knew, he was still kind of like
Yeah,
one
he
of those-
refused to learn the computer. I was like, you don't really need me. Like, you could learn this computer thing and,
Yeah.
But he's like, no. Anyway.
So you start working for Wendell Technographics right here in Murray.
Yeah.
And you were with him for a while. So
Like 7 years, I think. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I knew it was a hot minute that you were with him.
Yeah. That was a great experience. We didn't do like big, crazy houses. We did, mom and pop 1,500 square foot houses. But I learned so much about engineering because we redlined our own or did our own engineering red line. So we'd send it to an engineer. He would just mark everything up on the plan, redline it by hand, and then send it to me. And I would put his engineering stuff in the plans.
And then he would stamp that.
And then he would stamp that. So I got to see, like where straps and hold down, like foundation straps come out of the foundation and slap onto the wall and get nailed into place. Like, where are those going? And
you
all these
became more
hangers.
intimate with it because you had to draw it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to send them the plans, they do it, and then they send it back. It's like, oh, there's your set.
It looks good. Yeah.
Yep.
Move it along.
But you're the one actually performing that.
So I would draw the house. He would draw the floor plan by hand, hand it to me, and then I would build the entire plan from, in the computer from scratch, including the engineering, start to finish. And I did that for 7 years for a lot of just thousands of like Perry Homes and, these builders that didn't do crazy houses. It was more like kind of cookie cutter, for lack of a better word.
A little more production.
Production, yeah.
Yep.
And learning, I feel like a lot of the value that I gleaned from that was in a 1,500 square foot house, you're trying to cram a lot in there and you're keeping it at 1,500 square feet. They're like, hey, we need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a big kitchen. And you're like, how does all this fit? And so you're like very hyper focused on every square inch of a house. So you're getting the most out of this hallway. Could be 4 feet, but we probably needed like a 3'4" hallway because we needed to squeeze like the just hyper focused on square footage and making the most. There's no like fluff on a 1,500 square foot house. It's very like,
this room is just big enough
yeah,
the bed and the nightstand, kind of thing.
And doing thousands of those, I think, just helped me like hyper focused on that square footage and dimensioning and the little details.
Yeah, I've known Wendell, and obviously I've known you for a long time. You drew my personal home, this house that we're sitting in, and I think that was about 2013.
Was it okay?
Because I tore down in 13, built in 14. So, but where you ended up going and working with a firm up in Park City, which I'm sure was wildly different from what you were used to doing.
Crazy different.
So yeah, because you are no longer drawing 1,500 square feet. You were probably drawing 15,000 square feet. And so walk us through kind of what that was and maybe why you felt like, hey, you know what, Technographics, I've outgrown it. It's time for me to leave. To walk us through what that looked like and why you made that decision.
So having done like thousands of 1,500 square foot houses, I was ready for like something else. And it was so fun. The few times we did do bigger homes, like maybe 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, it was still not a crazy budget, but it was still like I thought it was so fun working on big, cool custom homes that you could actually put in like the cool beams and details and make a house like cool and sexy. And like, that was like so exciting to me. So there's a company in Park City, Jaffa Group. It's a design build firm. I saw that they were hiring and I'd sent in my resume, kind of not really thinking that they would take me seriously because I don't have an education. Had just been doing, this kind of mom and pop detail stuff. They took a break on me and I think that's where I got the biggest break, is working for them and learning from Scott Jaffa, like amazing mentor.
He's the dad.
No, he's the son. He's the
son.
Architect side of things.
Okay.
So
and
they have
the
a
dad
design.
is the contractor.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And, so cool going from, I don't know, 500, a budget of $500,000 to just show me something cool. Clients that just have the money to be like, what's in your imagination? Show me. If I think it's cool, we'll do it. Like that was so fun to me. Like just whatever you could come up with, not anything, but within reason. Like if you show them like this, I have this really cool idea of this, giant garden wall and whatever it is. And they're like, okay, that's cool.
Let's do it.
But nobody's ever built this. So you have to like also detail it and make sure it's going to like function. Yeah.
Like, where's the water going?
Yeah. How are you getting water from the top? Like, the example I'm thinking of, there was a home that I did in Miami for them. And in the front, I put this giant garden wall. So it has like a steel, like a V steel. And
like
almost
a gutter,
a C
like
channel.
like a V gutter, like a C channel at the bottom. Okay.
And they were stacked like, I don't know, 15 feet tall. So like you'd plant plants in all of them and then it would drain down
to water the plants
below. So it would create like this privacy from the entryway to like the other side of the yard where you can kind of see inside the house. So it was kind of like this cool greenery, but also like purposeful because, people walking up to the door don't want to see into the master bedroom. So we needed something to block it.
To give that privacy. Yeah.
And like a cool feature. And so it was like, show them the idea. And they're like, oh, I love that idea. How do we do it? And you're like, well, I don't know. Like, okay. Then you sit down with all the other people, like, how do we drain, like make sure the water's running and draining and get water fed up to the top of it so it doesn't go dry and protect it from the wind and so it doesn't all fall over, like all those.
And when it's coming out the bottom, where's it going?
What's holding it in place? All of it, how do you keep it from rusting, or do we want it to rust, or,
Yeah.
So I don't know, little things like that you could just like come up with like really cool solutions that are going to be expensive, but are going to be like, people walking up are going to be like, oh my gosh, what is this garden wall? This
very
is
unique,
crazy.
one of a kind.
One of a kind.
Pushes the imagination a little bit. And I think, satisfies that creativity, like desire to, like, I want to do something cool. I want to do something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly those clients that have, those resources to be able to do those things, it makes, it makes sometimes the job a little more enjoyable, right? A little more challenging, but like more enjoyable because it's like, hey, this is what they want. There's an expectation. They don't want 1,500 square feet, right? It's a little more of a statement piece for them potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're at the Jaffa Group. You're drawing these houses that are all over the United States. What made you make the jump? Because if I'm not mistaken, you went from Jaffa to your own firm.
No, there was a one stop in between. Well,
it was the design build that you were doing.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
exactly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left Jaffa.
Yeah. And then my time at Jaffa, again, one thing that I want to go back to, one thing I learned a lot from was just the way Scott, the main architect, just trusted us. Like he would be like, we would have several projects and you were just on the project, like you were designing the same project for 6 months. Like you were just drawing the same house for 6 months. I went from doing 3 houses a day to now I'm on a single plan.
For 6 months.
Instead of 8 sheets, it's, 150 sheets of like your details. And it was just, I don't know, it was so nuanced and cool and fun. And he would just trust you to, like, he would come in at the end of the day and be like, okay, show me what you're doing. You're like, oh, this is my idea. And he's like, I love that. Changed it. Like he just trusted us. And like, I don't know. Again, I can't
He
say
inspired
enough.
you to do it yourself.
Yeah.
As opposed to
micromanaging
or stand on your throat and be like, this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to tell you the right way and don't deviate from what. I think that's a trait of great leader who can kind of relinquish some of that. I know that I personally struggle with, letting go,
do you?
so to speak. Yeah.
That control, huh? It's hard.
Especially with subs, and I dialogue or say, hey, this is what I'd like, or how are we going to do this? What are your thoughts? I have a plan for this. If their plan deviates, I just want to more than anything understand.
Right.
Like, okay, so why do you want to do it that way? Help me understand. And there's a number of subs I've gotten I trust really well, and I go, hey, you know what? However you want to do it, because I know the end result's going to be what I'm after. But,
sure. That is one reason that I love working for you and with you on projects, is because I know the details are going to be taken care of. Like I'm not going to show up on the project and be like, what happened? Who put this here? Why? You're like, no, I show up on Brandon's jobs. It's dialed.
Yeah.
There's like, when there are issues, because there are issues every day.
Everything. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's just putting out fires as part of a contractor. But like when those issues arise, like you handle them and you're like, okay, again, solution based. How do we take care of this? What's the solution?
Yeah.
No finger pointing. Let's just move on.
There's not time to like dick around with, well, it's this guy's fault. It's like, I don't really care whose fault it is.
Let's just fix it.
Like, what are we going to do? Right?
Yeah.
What's the solution? Which I appreciate from you guys as well, is everything that you provide from drawings. And I know if there's anything that I'm missing, I can go back to you and say, hey, I need to know, I need a cross section of this.
Yeah.
What do you have in mind? How is this coming together? And we worked with other firms where it's like, the owner accepted the plans. If you want anything more, they're gonna have to pay for it. And
right.
It's just like, what? But no, I appreciate that from you guys. So you're at Jaffa. Scott's a great mentor.
Yeah.
You learn a ton from him. So then you left and you did kind of your own design build thing, kind of to duplicate a little bit of what they were doing?
No. So I went to work for a design build firm in Salt Lake that was pre-established.
Okay.
But the reason I felt like it was a good move is because it was I'd be like running the architecture department. Like,
oh, okay.
Instead of having like, it would be my designs. I would be in charge of the design.
You were kind of the head designer.
Yeah, the only designer.
Okay.
And doing some really cool houses, like kind of staying up in Park City. Nothing crazy houses, but like some really cool clients, really fun houses. And I would be kind of like running the design side of it. So it was the reason I felt like it was a big swing is because nobody else to fall back on but me.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple of years before I'd took the initiative to finally go out on my own and start my own design build firm with a friend. from scratch. We didn't have any clients lined up. So it was a big swing. We were like, why not? He's still really one of my best friends. Modern design build is what we started. And then after maybe, it didn't take long. It was maybe 6 months to a year before we realized like, hey, like we just had to come to Jesus moment with each other. Like, hey, I don't think this is going to work. Cause like, how do we delineate the architecture side from the building side? You know, like you're working so many hours right now because you're designing it. He's not, you know, or like vice versa.
Yeah.
Like he's building it, working. We don't have any designs in the mix. So it's like, it was just too complicated. And in order to keep like our friendship and I don't know, everything alive, it was just like, okay, let's split off. And that's when I started my own.
And separate them basically.
And at the time to be frank and honest, I was like panicked. Like I was like, well, I guess I'm sending out resumes again, you know? So I kind of went on my own kind of forcibly, you know, like, I don't know if I would have ever done it by myself. And it was just like, it was like an oh shit moment. Like of like, okay.
Sink or swim,
Sink or
right?
swim.
Like, I mean, either you figure it out or you're going to work for somebody else.
Exactly. So I certainly never, when I was a kid, never thought I'd be, you know, in the architecture field. And then being in the architecture field, never thought I would start my own business and run my own business, you know?
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of imposter syndrome, just not feeling qualified or, you know how it is.
Yep.
Everybody has their own, nobody's like fully confident. We're all just kind of figuring this out. But I've gotten some big breaks and some wonderful clients since then. Yeah, it's been scary and fun and all the things.
I
that
think
was like 6 years ago or so.
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think everybody likes the sexiness of being your own boss.
For sure. Yeah.
But the reality, you know, when I spoke to these students at Jordan Tech, you know, I asked them how many of them wanted to be their own boss. And of course, I don't know, 18 of the 22 kids in the class raised their hand. And I said, just be prepared to work, not 40 hours, but be prepared to work 60, 70, 80 hours. Be prepared to work on your Friday night, your Saturday night. Right. Because when you're, one, getting going, and two, even when you are going, like, clients want what they want. They need what they need. Like, and make no mistake, although you work for yourself, you're still, you work for that client, for that job.
You've
right?
traded one boss for 20 bosses.
Yes.
You have 20 bosses now. Every client is your boss.
Yep.
And you're trying to keep everybody happy, and you're doing things like, for myself, starting your own business, I went from being an artist and drawing cool pictures to now you're like booking and invoicing and sending out, you know, there's the whole business side that I wasn't prepared for, that it's like, oh wow, there's so much more to this now.
And then end of your taxes, and you're like, I don't.
Yeah,
your
what?
Account's like, I need you to bring all of your tax docs. And you're like, what are those?
What are those? Yeah. Can you send me an example?
Do you have QuickBooks? What's that?
Exactly.
I've got an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. So it's challenging going out on your own. As you know, there's so much that you just didn't foresee would be part of your daily tasks, but now are part of your daily tasks.
So when you made that leap to start your own business, did you have money in the bank? Did you have like, hey, I've got enough to live on for a few months? Or were you kind of like, hey, I got like 2 pennies to rub together, and I either need to like get some money coming in immediately, or I'm dead in the water.
Or we're going out. Yeah. Again, sending out resumes.
Yep.
And I had a young family at the time, still have a young family, but so there was a lot of pressure to perform, to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes the family for men really is kind of what catapults them.
For sure.
You know, I've said, I've had this conversation. I said, you know, I mean, look, I love what I do. I love working, but like, if I'm just doing it for myself, just for, you know, however much money I can put together, like, there's a little less motivation.
For sure.
Right.
And I think a spouse can help propel you and push you when you're maybe wanting to take it a little bit easier.
Or believe in you.
Believe in you. Give you the confidence to do that. Like, I remember she was the one that's like, no, try for Jaffa Group. And I was like, but they have like Prado Homes up in Park City. They're doing like,
They don't want me.
They don't want me. And she's like, no, just try. And she's like the one that was like my cheerleader at the time that I don't know if I would have taken those swings if I hadn't had somebody in my corner, like believing in it. Yeah.
It's interesting as you're telling me that, like, why would they want me? And I'm like, man, Curtis, you kick ass, man. Like, and I've known you for a long time. Right. And when you were drawing the 1500, but I was always impressed by you. And I was
thank
like,
you.
hey, like, and when you got that job, I was like, yeah, that's so good for him. I'm like, I'm sad to see him leave, but like, excited for you, happy for you.
Thank you.
So you've had your own business for 6 years. You've gone through a handful of employees.
Mm-hmm.
If there were a 20-something-year-old kid sitting here right now, or someone who's listening to you, and they think they want to choose this career path, what advice would you give them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Just try.
I think
one of my favorite models in life is just see what you can get away with. Like, just try, send some resumes out, go ask to sit behind me, or go, take a swing and go say, hey, can I come hang out at your studio? I'm thinking about doing this as a career. Can I come and just try it?
Observe. Try,
We'll give you a computer and say, yeah, here's their program. Try and figure it out. YouTube it. And we're here to answer questions. And you can come to meetings if you want and sit behind us and see us how we interact with clients. And yeah, I'm here to show anybody who thinks that they want to do this, that it's a sweet gig. Not every day, but it's like, it's a magical.
There's more good days than there are bad days.
By far, yeah. By far, yeah.
I think that that's cool, and what you're saying, and what I hear is you've got you have all this opportunity ahead of you. Right. Just go for it.
Just try.
And I talk to these young kids periodically, and some of them I talk to kind of more individually when I was at Georgia Tech, and I just I said, hey man, you got the world ahead of you, and if you're not sure what you want to do, go do a few different things, right? To kind of figure it out when you're young. Totally. But the trades and the construction industry, in my opinion, is a great place to be.
Totally.
And we're all starving for this young blood to come in.
Yeah.
And so I think most people in the industry are like arms wide open. Please come and see what it's all about and see how kick-ass this industry is.
'Cause it's not a boring job. Like every day you're putting out, okay, somebody's throwing a new puzzle at me today. Here's this issue, this issue, go. And you're like, okay, let me brainstorm. And you're working with the client and the builder and the interior designer. And like, it's not boring.
No.
Every day's totally new. It's a fun, it can be fun. Every day's not fun, but it can be fun.
Yeah. What's your most favorite part about being an architect?
Diving into a client's life. Like when a client lets you in, because they kind of have to let you in, because they're trusting you to design this perfect home for them and their family. So you need to dive into how they live
Personally,
having that personal touch. We spend time walking through their house with them, and they show us every closet and every room, and you're taking copious amounts of notes of like, oh, I see extra shoes on the floor. We need a place to put their shoes. And you're not telling them that, but you're like, oh, these people have 1,000 shoes and 1,000 kids.
Where the hell we put them?
I'm going to solve this problem for them at least. I see jackets all over the ground. I'm going to solve that problem for them. So at the end of this house that you have, like, okay, I see that their vacuum's out. We need a place. Like, there's a place for everything in their life when they move in. They never move in and think like, oh crap, I wish we would have thought where to put my printer or something,
Yes, yeah.
And just diving into them and how they live, and like seeing how they interact with their friends and their family and each other, and where do they take space? Where do they want to spend their time together as a family? Where do they eat? Do they want to eat at the island or at the dining table? Do they want something cozy? And just really diving in. And it's so fun to ask them 1,000 questions about, to go to the dining room question. We have 100 questions that we could ask about their dining room. Like how many people, how many parties, what do you want, a banquette? Do you want to sit at padded? Do you want a bench? Do you want chairs? Do you want a separate personal dining room? Or are you okay with it's part of the kitchen? Or do you want to eat at the island? Do you want a breakfast? There's 1,000 questions we could ask about that. And it's fun just to see
them unpack it.
Yeah. And then approach it like a puzzle. Like, okay, we have a budget. I love puzzles. I love games. And so when you show up to the first couple design meetings, there's like, okay, here's your budget. Here's the constraints of the lot. Here's the constraints of them, their house. Here's the HOA. That there's 1,000 different things that we have to like, model this thing,
put together.
And it's like, how are we going to do this? It's a blank piece of paper. Go. And you're like, okay, well, it's just like it's a big puzzle. And the funnest part of that is just like seeing the client and getting to know them and hopefully be their friend at the end of the project. And that's what I love. Yeah. Connecting with people.
We had a guest on the podcast, Jen Martin. She's the owner of Reset Your Nest. And I think she would be a great asset for you guys.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to collab, because she's, what you basically said, she is basically saying the same thing, right? Because what they do is they come in and like, everything has a place in its place. So when you open up your drawer, it says, and everything's labeled spatula, spoon, can opener, right? Really, really granular, right? I think you're looking at it a little less granular. Maybe, you're not like, oh, well, where are you going to put your spatula per se, right? But like, hey, here's your kitchen space. They kind of get really granular with some of that stuff.
I love that.
And she's talked about how if they're there, they can kind of, from the beginning, they can kind of like massage it a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's similar to, I think, what some of the projects that we've done and where we've worked together with, J Studios and myself, when we kind of have that team, like I have a different lens, you have a different lens, They have a different lens. And I feel like it's a much better finished product when it's go time and when it's delivered.
And I love like collaborating from the beginning with the builder, with the interior designer, with the homeowner, with their kids, with their friends. Have everybody look at this because everybody has that different lens. Yeah. And it's fun to like just bring everybody to the kitchen table and like throw down a plan and say like, here's this. If we're walking here, I don't know. Because you are as the builder, you're the one on the project, seeing the invoices, seeing how much things cost. You can help guide, the process depending on their budget, knowing like, hey, Curtis, I know you want to do a 20-foot sliding door here to capture the view of the mountain, but maybe let's rein it back. Maybe like make it a 14-foot door and like put some windows on the sides so you still get the glass, but like,
let's dial it back a little bit.
Dial it back. And same thing with the interior designers. I love working with J Studios because they're so good at offering just an extra set of eyes and even doing sketches and sending us sketches, not part of like the interior, like doing art, helping us with our job. Yeah. It's so fun. I love having people get involved in collaborating and that excitement of like creating something. And anyway.
Yeah, no, I as well, I echo that. I tell clients, I say, if we can get this team assembled, you'll actually save money. And let me give you for instance. We had some clients, they had plans, they hired us, got the designers involved, and it was like we had this butler's pantry that was not really functional. It really just wasn't.
Too small, or
very, very small. Like,
this was a new build or a renovation?
Yeah, new build, and it was, I can't remember, 4'8" wide. I mean, just you put cabinets in there, and now you're like shimmying down to get in front of the cabinets, and so we ended up making it wider. The designers were like, "Hey, we got to change it," so we ended up changing it. Well, that was right where the main bearing was. Like, so then we had to re-engineer. We were $10,000 into a change, right? Because now we got it before we started construction, so it wasn't construction, but it was by the time we went back to engineering, the architect, it was, and then redrawing cabinets, and so it was, a hefty charge. I tell people, like, if you can get the right team, it's actually going to save you money.
Yeah. We can do a lot of that brainstorming up front.
Feels like you're spending more money because it's like, hey, I'm spending all this money and nothing's happening at this point, right? But you in the long run will actually save a lot more money and have a much better final product. Yeah,
because you're eliminating a lot of those. Like that could have been a conversation that you would have had day one and would have never even thought it would have been a problem.
And it never would have been engineered that way.
Yeah, never. Right? Yeah.
Because the engineer's not going to engineer it that way if there's not something there to catch it or transfer the load. If you had to look back over, this career from making $44 a month delivering papers to where you are today. Where do you think your nailed it moment came in, right? Where, gosh, you know what? We just this is that moment.
To be honest, the moments that looking back have been the most pivotal are the moments that I, at the time, was like, oh shit. I've screwed it all up. Like when my friend and I parted ways, that was a moment that I'm like, well, I screwed that up. Like, I guess I'm back to the drawing board on all of this. We're going to have to move in with my in-laws or something. Those are the moments, but like the crushing, like, I guess, humility kicks in. Like the moments that I felt like, okay, well, that's over now. Those are the moments looking back that like you kind of rise out of like the phoenix out of the desert, like out of the ashes. And those looking back are like, okay, that's the time that I actually grew the most and took the biggest swings. Cause you're like, well, shit,
sink or swim.
Like, and those are the times that you think like that for me personally, that I felt like I've screwed it all up. And, looking back, those are the moments that I felt like, okay, I learned the most from and grew the most from, because I could, I don't know, take a bigger swing or like, well, I guess, that's the worst case scenario is we're moving back with the in-laws, and so might as well just try.
But it's like, look, we either got to nail this or that's the alternative, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the choice, right? Like you said earlier, sink or swim.
Like losing those houses. I thought the world's declaring bankruptcy, 21 years old and all that, like you think like, oh, I'm never coming back from this.
This is a hole I'm never going to climb out of.
Yeah. And that kind of set my whole career into motion, as far as the design side of it. So
one of the things that we want to do on the podcast here is highlight pitfalls that we see people making, whether it's owners or contractors or other design firms. What are a few things that you see mistakes that either owners make and or contractors make?
Like homeowners or
like homeowners,
owners?
like clients,
Okay.
clients coming to you, like what? Because we want to try to educate homeowners in
Right.
some of these better methods, better practices. And I'm curious from an architect standpoint, what are some shortfalls that you see from general contractors?
From general contractors, shortfalls from generals. Generals that don't set expectations up front or set wildly unrealistic expectations. That's what I love about you is like, we'll show up and a client's like, hey, so like 6 months, what are you thinking on a time frame? And I'm like, I turn to you and you're like, this is an 18-month project. Like, yeah. And they're like, what? No.
What?
Like where most people would be like just a yes man and just say like, sure, I guess we could try that. But then it's going to take what it takes. It's going to take 18 months. Anyway, setting the right expectation. And that is I feel like in our industry, absolutely needed. Just say the hard thing it is up front. Like, what's this going to cost me? Are we thinking $1 million? And you're like, no, we're thinking $3 million.
Yep.
Like, just say the hard
thing. Have the hard conversation.
If that's too much, that's fine. We can go back to the drawing board. But that's with this set of plans, just set that expectation, tell them the hard thing. And then I would say for homeowners is to listen to that. Don't think, well, that's not my contractor then. I talked to a couple other guys and they said 6 months. So I'm going over there. Like, don't go to the yes man because you're going to pay more. It's going to be an 18 months project. It's not going to be as detailed. You're not going to be happy. Like, so that's my advice. Yeah. I guess advice to a homeowner is like, listen. When a contractor that you trust tells you something hard to hear, take it in. And if that's, again, going back to the budget, if it's the budget thing, like we can go back to the drawing board. We can show you $1 million and what that looks like. And like, just let us work with you, I guess.
I tell clients, when they have somebody who said, well, I can get a bid from this guy for free. I'll often say, well, how good is free, right? How good is free, right? If this surgeon said, hey, I'll cut you open for free. I'll give you a heart surgery for free. Are you like, wow, it's like, you just like doing this out of the generosity of your heart, right? Or because if it's your profession, how valuable is free? Can you take free to the bank? Are you comfortable taking free to the bank and getting a loan based upon free?
Sure.
Or I often will say, listen, you can find a contractor or an architect to tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yeah. That's not hard.
Yeah, you can find that. That's easy. And you can find people that are cheaper. You can find people more expensive.
Sure.
Right? What we're trying to deliver is and work with clients who want to know the truth and have the full picture.
Yeah. And have it done right.
Yeah.
Have a little bit more white glove up front. Like we can,
spend a little more time planning.
Spend a little more time planning. Yeah. Agreed. Awesome.
Well, Curtis, this has been super fun.
Time's up.
Yeah, we're
okay.
Super fast, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people, look, super casual. We'll come in here, we'll chat a little bit, we'll shed some light on the listeners, or give them some nuggets to chew on, and but yeah, we're super excited for your careers. Excited to see where you go in the future, and excited and looking forward to working with you on a few projects we've got coming up in Park City with you. And
yeah, those are gonna be cool. Those are gonna be fun ones.
Yeah, those are gonna be really good. Yeah. So we've turned designers loose on them.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
I'd love to hear their feedback.
Yeah, we're they've got a few things, but we'll be sure we circle back with you in a couple of weeks when we've got some feedback from them, and we'll go from there.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been great. And like I said, great knowing you and working with you all these years, and look forward to many more years together.
Yeah, we were so young back then. I was like,
yeah, man.
I remember you showing up and I was like, dude, who is this shredded dude? You had like this surfer hair at the time. You were like doing and you were so like articulate and put together. And I remember being very impressed with you from the beginning. Man. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it was like back in the day, man. That's, I guess I'm a little bit older than you, so I guess I was late 20s, early 30s about. Maybe. I think. Are
you older than me?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
81?
So, I'm 80.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, I thought you were maybe like 84, 85.
No, I got far too much gray to be 84, 85.
I've got a little bit in my beard here, so I keep it short.
Well, you wear it well.
So you don't see it.
It's funny.
Little bit of Botox occasionally. The
Brotox. I need to dive into that a little bit then.
So
cool.
Well, sweet, man. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.